something snapped inside the monarchy, and this time the tremor didn't come from palace whispers, leaked memoirs, or another carefully staged interview. It came from Australia, from thousands of furious voices rising at once, from a petition that exploded past 100,000 signatures and sent shockwaves straight through the walls of Buckingham Palace. And at the center of the storm, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, two former working royals who thought they could step away from the crown but still sell the crown's shine.
Harry and Meghan plan to rebound from this latest flop with another tour of Australia, a spokesperson.
Because the moment that clip aired, something changed. The polite silence that had surrounded the Sussex saga for years suddenly shattered. The story was no longer about a couple chasing independence. No, this had mutated into something far messier, far louder, a global argument about power, privilege, and whether a royal title can be turned into a $3,200 VIP ticket. And the numbers tell the story. Over 100,000 Australians signing a petition in outrage. Not quietly, not politely, loudly, publicly. Their message was brutally simple. Not 1 cent of taxpayer money should be spent supporting the Sussex spectacle. Suddenly, the sun-soaked Australian retreat, marketed as a glamorous besties gathering where fans could meditate, manifest dreams, and sit near a duchess, began to look less like a wellness event and more like a royal cash register ringing nonstop. Critics were already whispering comparisons, dangerous comparisons. The ghost of Sarah Ferguson, a royal whose own scandals once rocked the palace, suddenly resurfaced in conversations again. But insiders say this situation feels different, colder, more strategic. Because where Ferguson's financial missteps looked chaotic, Meghan's Australian retreat appeared calculated. A sleek modern business built entirely on one glittering phrase, Duchess of Sussex. And that phrase has now triggered something explosive inside the royal family itself. Because while Meghan prepared luxury dinners and manifestation sessions for wealthy guests, something very different was unfolding behind palace walls in London. At dawn, while most of the world slept, Prince William was reportedly already awake, not casually reading headlines, not quietly hoping the drama would fade. No, according to sources, he was in urgent consultations with legal advisors before the sun had fully risen over Kensington Palace. The message he reportedly delivered was blunt enough to freeze the room. The monarchy is a service, not a billboard for hire. And suddenly, the quiet royal tensions that had simmered for years began boiling over. Because William was no longer asking for restraint, he was preparing action, real action, diplomatic action. Within hours, a formal memo was reportedly dispatched to Australian officials. The wording was precise and devastating. The visit by Harry and Meghan would be classified strictly as a private commercial venture. No official royal tour, no state welcome, no government-funded security, no taxpayer-supported prestige, just two private citizens selling an experience. For Harry and Meghan, the symbolism could not be more brutal. Australia was once their stage of triumph. In 2018, they were adored there. Crowds cheering, cameras flashing, headlines praising the fresh modern royal couple. But now, the same country that once celebrated them had gathered over 100,000 signatures labeling them something far darker, opportunists. And the contrast between the brothers suddenly looked almost cinematic. While Meghan finalized event packages worth thousands of dollars per guest, Prince William spent his morning attending briefings about the Commonwealth cost of living crisis, housing initiatives, inflation pressures, real-world problems. The future king leaning into the weight of duty, while his brother and sister-in-law appeared to be leaning into the glow of celebrity. To royal commentators watching this drama unfold, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Some insisted the entire retreat only exists because of one thing, the royal title. Remove Duchess of Sussex from the advertisement, they argue, and suddenly the price tag collapses like a house of cards, which raises the uncomfortable question now echoing through both London and Sydney. What exactly is the Sussex brand without the crown? Because as the petition signatures kept climbing and sponsors quietly began reconsidering their involvement, the once glamorous Australian retreat started to feel less like a triumphant comeback and more like the beginning of a spectacular unraveling. And behind palace doors, the strategy being crafted by Prince William was only just beginning. The world had seen the first tremor, but insiders say the real strike was still coming. But the storm didn't slow down after that first tremor, it intensified. Because while the world was still arguing about the petition, about the $3,200 VIP tickets, about whether a duchess should be hosting manifestation sessions beside a Sydney pool, something even more dramatic was unfolding quietly behind government doors in Australia. And the name reportedly attached to the phone call that changed everything was the same one now echoing through royal headlines across the globe. globe, Prince William. Sources say the conversation took place early in the morning, the kind of tense diplomatic call where every word matters and every sentence carries consequences that ripple far beyond a single event. According to insiders familiar with the reconstruction of the discussion, William's message to Australian officials was not emotional, not angry, not dramatic. It was colder than that. Precise, calculated, final. He reportedly made it crystal clear that the visit planned by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle was not a royal tour, not an official engagement, and certainly not something the British monarchy would endorse. It was, he said, a private commercial venture by two individuals who had already stepped away from royal duties. And with that sentence, the entire foundation beneath the glamorous Sydney Besties retreat began to crack, because without the invisible shield of royal approval, the event suddenly looked very different. Sponsors who had once lined up for the prestige of hosting a duchess began quietly backing away. Reports started circulating that two major corporate partners pulled funding almost immediately after the palace position became public. Suddenly, the glamorous retreat that promised empowerment, luxury dinners, and exclusive proximity to Meghan Markle began to look less like a celebration and more like a financial gamble no one wanted to touch. Critics who had once whispered the word grifter online were now repeating it on television panels and in newspaper columns, and the symbolism was brutal. Australia, the country that once embraced Harry and Meghan with overwhelming affection during their 2018 tour, had now become the place where their royal credibility appeared to unravel in real time. The psychological blow of that reversal cannot be overstated. Harry, who once described Australia as feeling like a second home, now found himself returning to a country where over 100,000 citizens had publicly rejected the idea of funding his visit in any form. The dream of a half-in, half-out royal lifestyle, a balance between Hollywood celebrity and royal prestige, suddenly looked like a fantasy collapsing under its own contradictions. Meanwhile, back in Britain, the contrast between the two brothers grew sharper with every passing hour. While Meghan's retreat prepared seating charts and VIP packages, William was reportedly locked in meetings discussing the cost of living crisis affecting millions of people across the Commonwealth. The imagery was almost too perfect. One brother preparing manifestation workshops for wealthy attendees, the other discussing housing initiatives and economic pressure facing ordinary families. Commentators across royal media circles began framing the moment as the final collapse of the Sussex experiment. For years, Harry and Meghan had tried to prove they could leave royal duties but still retain the influence, prestige, and market power of the titles they carried. But the events unfolding around the Sydney retreat suggested the monarchy was finally drawing a line. Insiders claim that during a consultation with senior advisors, William delivered a statement that perfectly summarized the new royal strategy. "This is not about family," he reportedly said. "This is about the survival of the crown. A monarchy cannot allow its titles to be sold like VIP tickets to a lifestyle seminar." And with that philosophy guiding the palace response, the consequences quickly became tangible. Without government recognition, the Sussex trip would receive no official security funding, a bill estimated to exceed $5 million. Corporate sponsors were disappearing. Media coverage was turning hostile. Even in Hollywood, whispers began circulating that agencies and brands were reconsidering future partnerships with Meghan because the Royal Association that once boosted her market value now looked like a liability. The retreat that had been marketed as Meghan Markle's grand Australian comeback was rapidly transforming into something far darker, a symbol of royal rejection. By the afternoon, the numbers told the story more brutally than any commentary ever could. Sponsorship losses reportedly exceeded $4 million. Corporate partners vanished. Analysts described the event as commercially toxic, and inside palace circles, the moment was already being called something else entirely: the Steel Strike, a calculated strategy designed to sever the Sussex brand from the official power of the monarchy once and for all. But the most revealing moment of the entire saga may have come during a private conversation reportedly held later that day between Prince William and a trusted confidant. The reconstruction of his words, now circulating among royal insiders, carries a quiet finality that feels almost chilling. "Legacy," William reportedly said, "is not something you sell in a gift shop. It is something you carry for the people who trust you with it." And on that day, according to those watching the drama unfold, the boundary between royal service and celebrity culture was no longer blurred. It became a wall that Harry and Meghan now found themselves standing on the outside of. The once powerful Sussex brand, built on the idea that rebellion against the monarchy could coexist with royal prestige, suddenly looked fragile, exposed, and uncertain. Because the crown had finally responded not with anger, but with silence, distance, and a simple devastating declaration, if you choose to walk away from royal duty, you also walk away from the royal shield that made your influence possible. And as the sun set over London and Sydney on that extraordinary day, the question hanging over the entire royal saga felt heavier than ever. Had the Sussex story just reached its breaking point, or had it only just entered its most dangerous chapter?